Attention comrades and welcome. Scarlet Nexus at this point is not the newest Bandai Namco game on the market, but it's relatively new. Is it the best JRPG of the year? Probably not. But is it still worth your time? Let us see, shall we? The premise of the game is simple. You get to play as a psionically powerful individual in a cyberpunk-like futuristic version of the Earth and protect the humanity from the ever-growing threat of the others. Simply put, they are the monsters that are created in a stratosphere of the planet and prey on the brains of the humans. The important part of the game are visions. In simple terms, they are special powers such as telepathy, pyrokinesis, telekinesis, and so on. The vision is not only an ability to use these kinds of power. Without it, an individual will not be able to live fully in a society of this game. Main reason being the fact that everything was built upon visions. Wanna see those traffic lights and drive a car? Well, you can't if you don't have a vision. Wanna use brain talk and talk to your friends directly in a similar fashion as with telepathy? Well, too bad if you don't have a vision. Even the most basic functions become a lot harder for the visionless citizens. This creates a hierarchy where the people with the strongest visions can do almost everything, while the others face constant discrimination. This is also a reason for the experimentation upon people to awaken said power, since if you can control who gets this kind of power, then you can pretty much call yourself a god. This is only one of the themes of Scarlet Nexus, which in turn is good. The game is pretty much linear. There are different kinds of locations that are explorable as much as you want, and depending on who you play as, might make a couple of differences. But the core story will remain the same. The story, in my opinion, is good, but make sure to play as Yuito the first time around. Some of the interesting sequences happened during his playthrough, and after this, play as Kasane and fill in the gaps. I did this the other way around, and I got a lot of the key information through short dialogues. For some reason, I got the feeling that at first writers wanted to make Yuito the only protagonist, but later on changed the focus and made Kasane as the second one, which wasn't bad, but boy did it make a couple of the story bits weird and redundant. The game also focuses on developing the relationships with your party members, which are optional. It pretty much boils down to being a nice person to everyone by listening and giving them some gifts, or being an asshole and neglect them the whole game, which automatically makes the game a bit harder. For the note, it isn't like Persona games, but this mechanic, as simple as it is pretty welcome. From these relationships, you will learn a lot about the world and how most of the people are treated. If you want to invest yourself in this world, then developing the relationships with your party members is an important key to it. Now, without much ado, let us go into details. First up is presentation, the visuals. This is an anime game. The game uses Unreal Engine. The style is pretty good. I never found anything disturbing or bad about it. If you watch a lot of the animes, then the visuals won't surprise you. But I have to say, some of the locations are truly beautiful. Sometimes I even forgot that the game used an Unreal Engine. After Persona games, nothing surprises me much when it comes to enemy designs, which in this game are pretty good. There are a lot of the reskins, but considering the length of the game, the enemies are diverse enough. The overall style of the game visuals creates a unique experience, which differentiates it from the other games of the similar genre, especially during the storytelling. Most of it is told through dialogues, which, in my opinion, are done spectacularly. It's the same style as in Persona, the visual novel style, but compared to this, Persona in this regard is much simpler. The music is a mix of techno and cyberpunk styles plus a bit of the classical touch during some of the key moments of the game. You either love it or hate it. The music, just like in most of the RPGs, can be broken down into three categories. Environmental background music, which plays during the exploration of this game's locations, battle music that surprisingly plays during the battles, and music that plays during different kinds of events, such as Bond episodes or when the gang discusses something important or funny. Out of all these three, the environmental background music is, in my opinion, the best. Just listen to this.
一緒に戦っていればわかるしな。
そうか。ゲンマは正しいものの見方ができるんだな。変人揃いの海抜軍の良心そのものだ。
料理にお洗濯、やりたいことが山積みだわ。なんかさ、私たちいつも一緒だよね。
Some of the people, including me, listen to this kind of thing while working or studying. Each of the environmental background music has its own battle version, which is cool and commendable. Not a lot of games do this kind of stuff, but it has one big problem. Most of the time you won't be able to clearly listen to it. I mean, try to listen in this instance.
サスを使ってサクッと見つけようぜ。もっと力を。さすがですね。敵はこっちを見失ったようです。任せてもらうわ。ありえると思っていましたが。
風であれ影楼であれ、同じ海賊軍の犯行というのは。 余計に辛いな。やったわ。
敵はずぶ濡れ。放電能力が効きそうです。
続けていく。敗北は許さないぞ。
よかった。間に合いましたね。ごめんなさい。油断したわ。
いける。
And before you ask, yes, this happens almost every single time. Because of the frantic, chaotic nature of the combat, sadly, you will not hear most of the battle themes, which is a shame, since there are a couple of the hidden gems here. My favorites are these two.
先んずればなんとやらだ。
決めるわ。
血一つ残すな。
一瞬で片付けてくれよ。私の目貸すから。
敵を翻弄しましょう。じゃあ、あとよろしく。
決めるわ。
セルス開始ってか。
いける。終わり。
You might ask, but Borislav, you exemplary dashing comrade in arms, I hear you say, why don't you just adjust the volume? Well, my answer to that would be that I mostly play the games on default settings in order to experience the game the way devs intended for it to be normal. This sadly isn't normal, but at this point it's just a nitpick. Since most of the battles are over in a flash, you'll be spending most of your time listening to the environmental background tracks, which, as I've said before, are the best. Some of them were already added to my playlist that I listen to almost every day. Every boss has its own theme, which is cool, but nothing to write the home about, even though this time you will be listening to it clearly. At least it has some positive sides, I guess. The final boss has an interesting theme, but still, for me, not good enough to add to my playlist. Sounds are surprisingly good and satisfying. The sound it makes when you hurl a big object on the enemy is perfect. Normal attack combos are good too. I never found anything wrong with them, especially during the combos. Combo strikes are meaty, which just destroys any normal enemy that stands in your way, especially when you combine them with pyro or electrokinesis. The presentation overall is good. Even the non-anime lovers will enjoy this part of the game. The gameplay is at least normal. The closest example for me would be the gameplay of the Metal Gear Revengeance, both visually and mechanically, and I will explain why. In the beginning, you will have to choose one of the two main protagonists, Yuito or Kasane. Both of them have their pros and cons, as the game shows you in a tutorial section. Yuito is more of a melee fighter, while Kasane is more of a ranged one, but not much. Both of them have telekinesis as their main power, which they chain in order to do combos. There are ground and aerial ones. After every normal or heavy weapon attack, a telekinetic follow-up attack can be executed, after which a normal follow-up attack can be used. This creates a unique set of combos. Effectively, before every telekinetic attack, you can do the full normal plus heavy attack combos. Rinse and repeat until the enemy dies from your unending chain of attacks. Plus, dashes don't break the combos, so if you need to dodge, do it and continue the combo. I have to say, moving in this game looks and feels very realistic and satisfying. Dodging feels smooth and rewarding. A bit later on in a story, you will get access to the special powers of your teammates, which either buff your attacks or give you an extra sustainability or flexibility. Some of them give everything. This mechanic of using a portion of your teammates' powers works well and gives combat much needed depth, since some of the later enemies will be hard to fight against, and without using these powers, almost impossible to defeat. But I have to say, some of the powers are more useful than the others, and because of this, the whole playthrough of Yuito's story was much harder than Kasane's. You might ask why, and I will explain my reasoning. In the long run, Kasane's platoon's powers were more useful, since 3 of the 4 enhance the attack power directly. Kagero's invisibility gives you extra survivability plus bonus damage on the first attack after you go invisible. Shiden just enhances the power of the normal attacks with the electricity and gives extra chance to shock the enemies, which knocks them down and opens them for some direct attacks. This also works on some of the bosses. Kyoka just duplicates every telekinetic attack and later on even the normal attacks. None of them may sound too OP, but combine them and oh boy, you will mow down every enemy one after the other, especially after you nail the rhythm of the Kagero's invisibility. The last power is the hypervelocity, which just slows down time for you only and gives you the opportunity to dish out some free damage on every enemy. The bosses are no exception. In Yuito's team, only Hanabi's pyrokinesis enhances the attacks, the same way Shiden does, minus the shock. Instead, she gives burn, which may sound cool and useful, but only against you. The enemies have far too much HP for the burn to do necessary damage. In the end, you yourself will dish out much needed damage in order to defeat them. Other than Hanabi, none of the other party members enhance the power directly. Only Tsugumi's clairvoyance, but only during the perfect dodges, but only slightly, nothing too major, especially on a hard difficulty. Gemma just gives you invincibility, which depletes faster if you take the damage. The last and probably the least useful of them is Lucca's teleportation, which also enhances the power during the teleportation attacks, but it takes a lot longer than the normal dash attacks to execute them. It becomes useful if you're way farther from the enemy. If you level these powers through the improvement of the relationships, they will always remain weaker than Kasane's platoon's powers. You might say, Borislav, Yuito has more survivability. That's true, but if the enemy can be killed faster, then that much survivability isn't necessary anymore. In short, Yuito has to dodge more while Kasane obliterates everything. The invisibility power combination just breaks the combat with the normal enemies. I'm not joking. During every battle, you can just select an enemy which will die first, while others cannot do anything about it. And later on, you can do this one after the other. Sadly, battles are fast-paced, so the longer it will take, the harder it will get. One of the main reasons is the lack of notification when the enemy attacks. These can occur through visual or audio cues. A good example of this is in the game Remnant from the Ashes. There, every enemy makes some kind of sound accompanied with visual cues before every attack. This gives you enough time to dodge incoming damage. This way, you do not need to look at every enemy, you just have to listen. This is a good design. In Scarlet Nexus, the enemies do these sorts of stuff too, but because of the loudness of combat, you won't be able to listen to them. I mean, look at this. Which of the enemies will attack me? I say devs had good idea, but the execution is bad. Both of the protagonists have unique skill trees. By battling and leveling up, you will get skill points which you spend to unlock new skills in a skill tree. I have to be honest, I'm always hyped for this kind of mechanic. Something in me is just overjoyed when I level up and know that I can unlock new skills. It's my guiltiest pleasures in games. There is also equipment system, but nothing too complicated. Most of the modules increase stuff like HP or attack. The game has a surprisingly good system for the character customization. There are a lot of items which may completely change the look of the characters. You wanna have a band of furies? Go ahead, I'm not judging you, but I might hate you. A sort of a Power Ranger squad? No problem. And of course, these changes are visible in the cutscenes, which sometimes may be super funny. In the actual combat, every enemy has unique attacks, which can be dodged. Even the spray kind of the attack of these creatures. With clairvoyance, the dodge window becomes a lot bigger. Almost on every battle arena are throwable objects. These are limited, so if you use all of them, then your telekinesis becomes pretty much useless. So pay attention to it. The relationships function pretty simple. By giving gifts to your party members and listening to their stories during the Bond episodes, you'll get closer to them, which in turn strengthens the power they lend you. And oh boy do they get OP, especially at the end of the game. Except of Lucca's teleportation, it just remains useless. I just don't get this power. You also get assault, defense, and combo visions, unique to the party member. While the first two are pretty useful, the third one is just garbage. I only used it during the quests because they cost at least half of your SAS gauge, which does not recharge fast enough to use them continuously or justify their usage. Plus, they are weak. I'd rather use normal powers. They bring just so much more on the table. One other thing I really liked was the fact that every gift the player gives to his or her teammates is visible in a hideout. After 2 playthroughs, this place becomes pretty cramped, but feels like home. I mean, look at these boxes. Those are full of protein, and I helped him get those. These gifts also show you little details about the characters. The fact that Kasane likes to carve wood, do people call it like that? And you learn about it after you max out any relationship or give them these gifts. I have to say, the Bond episodes really let you understand the struggle most of the characters have, and are interesting. Those are just extra anime episodes, which may not even be in an actual anime. And you heard it right, this game has an anime. Why, you might ask? I don't know. As of writing this review, 8 episodes are out. There is this mechanic where you have to find a secret sentence or a word in each episode and give them to Musubi. She's an NPC who gives you these sorts of quests to find these lines. The rewards are sadly only posters of the anime characters, which in my opinion look ridiculous in game. But who am I to judge? By the way, this game also has one of the worst quests, which pretty much boil down to go here and kill this enemy like this 3 or 5 times. Plus, rewards are again nothing to write home about. This just kills any motivation one might have. And there are around 50 quests like this. There is no endgame content. You know, I hope till the end of the second playthrough as Yuito that there will be some kind of extra chapter or at least harder bosses or a secret boss, but no, nothing. You can now change main characters from the hideout. Yay! This is bullshit. The exploration, on the other hand, is pretty good, but only the first time around. After a couple of times, the exploration becomes boring and everything is because of the boring quests or item collections. Sometimes you just have to start the exploration over and over if you want to complete specific quests. This just becomes a chore really quickly. Without much spoilers, the story is okay. If you've watched many animes, played a couple of the games, then most of the stuff will not surprise you. And you'll enjoy it. Most of the story is done through dialogues in a visual novel style, plus a couple of the cutscenes once in a while. So if you like and used to this kind of thing, then bonus points for you. When it comes to the style of the dialogues, it's unique enough, plus works well with the setting. If you don't want the story spoiled, go to here. Are they gone? Apparently 3,000 years ago, people of the Earth colonized the moon and escaped a certain catastrophe that happened on Earth. 1,000 years after the colonization, former people of the Earth came back to their home planet in order to make it habitable. One of the colonizers was the Sumeragi family. Well, to be clear, the great-great-great-great-grandpa of the main protagonist, Yuito, who's regarded as the hero for the new Himuka government. Soon after the first colonizers arrived on Earth, the extinction belt appeared. That's the transparent thingy that surrounds the Earth and spawns the game's punching bags, the others. Humanity survived and split into 2 factions, New Himuka and Togetsu. In order to defend itself, the government of the first one established OSF, which stands for the Other Suppression Force, if I'm not mistaken. New Himuka functions like the modern European/American countries, but it only looks like this on the surface. As you go along the story, you will learn about a lot of things that New Himuka does secretly, and most of this stuff is told in Yuito's story. That is why it's best to play as him the first time around. There is also the second major city of this country, Seiran, which rebels in the 3rd chapter. Main reason for it being these exact secret things that New Himuka was doing. Plus, who does not like independence from an oppressive government? Togetsu, on the other hand, are complete psychos. In the beginning, you learn that they worship the moon, but in reality they are the colonizers who want to return to the moon, but they can't, because of the extinction belt. Since not only does it spawn the other, it also does not allow them to leave the planet. They tried to find a way to destroy the extinction belt, but they couldn't. So they came up with this idea to go back in time and make it so that the people on the moon never tried to colonize the Earth again. Because of this, they started to create design children with strong psionic powers. In the end, they achieved their goal and created Kasane, the strongest psionic with red strings power, which basically is the time travel power. Since there are two main protagonists, Yuito also has the same kind of power, but much weaker, since it developed mostly naturally. Because of this, he cannot travel freely through time like Kasane can. Overall, it is said that Kasane's psychokinesis is far stronger than Yuito's, but gameplay-wise they work the same and can do same stuff, which is a bit disappointing to tell you the truth. There were other cities, but they were mostly destroyed by the hands of the others. But the story begins after the 2000 years in the city of Suo, either as Kasane or Yuito. Both are the newest cadets of OSF. The game is split into chapters, with standby phase after the end of every chapter, which gives you an extra time to bond with your teammates and complete extra quests, which, as I've said before, are more like challenges than anything else, and completely boring. Everything during the standby phase is optional. The first 3 chapters are a sort of an introduction to the story. They explain stuff like Extinction Belt, what Togetsu is, and so on. Most of the characters get introduced, which is a necessary thing, since there are a lot of them. Are the characters good? Yes, most of them fall into generic anime cliché tropes such as childhood best friend who's secretly in love with the main protagonist, a timid girl of a few words who has a lot more to say than meets the eye, a cheerful old dude who's secretly hiding a painful and dark past. I won't get on their story much, since I don't want this video to be 2 hours long. But soon shit happens when the sister of Kasane gets turned into the other and Yuito has to subdue her, since she just wanted to kill everyone at that exact moment. In the end, Seiran's dudes come and teleport her away. This incident creates a chain of events. The protagonists start to question the government of New Himuka. After this, Seiran rebels and half of the OSF sides with Seiran. One of them is Kasane and her platoon. But before that, both Kasane and Yuito platoons go to Kunad Highway. Here happens the main part of the rebellion. You fight your fellow OSF members, theoretically, but mostly NDF, National Defense Force. Plus, General Major Karen, the leader of the rebellion. Yes, his name is Karen, we nailed it, let us move on. Of course, you lose against Karen because he's level 50 Karen, and you're probably around 20 or 25, maybe lower if you skip the standby phases. Plus, he also does not have Crush Gauge, which means that he's unbeatable. I mean, it's not that you lose, but you can't win, since after a certain time has elapsed, he activates the Brain Field, this universe's Super Saiyan mode, and after this, the battle ends abruptly. Here Karen says something very interesting along the lines of, so this time future will unfold like this or something like this. This would be for the most players nothing major, since you don't know that time travel is involved in the game. But for the second playthrough, this little line shows also that Karen has been going back and forth in time to achieve his goal. But back to the story. In a cutscene, Captain Seto dies, sadly, which triggers Kasane's Red String's power, since she, I guess, had a crush on him, and overwhelming emotions do trigger psionic powers subconsciously, I guess. Since Yuito also has the same kind of power, it resonates with hers, and they together create Kunad Gate, which practically allows them to travel through time. But Yuito isn't as strong as Kasane, because of this he's unable to travel with her. In the future, Kasane's gang sees the end of the world, have a brief meet and greet with future version of Yuito, who apparently is blind now, but looks badass. He explains that the world ends because of his power. At Kunad Highway, he wasn't able to travel through time. Because of this, Kunad Gate was never closed. In contrast, it expanded every time Yuito used his power. The only way to close it was for Yuito to die, which nobody could do. In the end, future Yuito asks Kasane to kill present Yuito to avoid the end of the world. After this, Kasane comes back to present and talks to her platoon. In the future, she also learns that apparently she killed Yuito's father. In order to clear up some stuff, plus see how the rebellion is going, the both gangs go to Suo, where they fight against NDF. They are the local army of Seiran in this case. Kasane's group gets to OSF headquarters first and sees how Kagero kills Yuito's father. And right at this moment happens, in my opinion, the stupidest thing in the game. Kasane goes to the dying man, picks up the knife that's full of blood, and threatens him to answer her if New Himuka was experimenting with the others. What you gonna do if he does not speak? Kill him? The dude is already dying. This is bullshit. And right at this moment, Yuito shows up and sees the bloodied knife in Kasane's hand, which will imply that she killed his father. No one in their right mind would pick up bloodied knife in order to threaten an already dying man. At least pick one of your knives, which weren't bloodied. Plus, suddenly Kasane also attacks Yuito, but does not kill him for some reason. I guess protagonists do dumb stuff because they want to advance the plot. This is stupid. From this point forward, the two protagonists go their separate ways and create their own platoons of 5 people. Kasane and Major General Karen go to Seiran and the others stay at Suo. The next few chapters, Kasane's gang searches for the information about others, especially those who were once humans. Kasane's party finds the other research center where Naomi is held, as other, of course, and after that, Yuito's too, where they also clash with each other. I have to say that for a secret research facility, this place is unguarded, and the others are running around as if they own the place. I guess they are free security. It's not that Seiran did not want to use these monsters as Suo or Togetsu wants. And does, right? Yuito's gang before this also tries to find information about New Himuka's secrets. They come upon this supposed deserted OSF hospital, which is still run by New Himuka for the experiments on the human others and brainwashing people who are against them. New Himuka has a pretty fucked up government, if I do say so myself. The interesting story parts happen when both of the parties travel to Togetsu, where they learn that Kasane was an artificially created human being with the time travel power. Yuito's party learns about Togetsu's true goal, which is to go back to the moon with the help of the time travel. They plan to unmake the whole recolonization of the Earth. Everything is confirmed when Kagero tells the gang that he was one of the colonizers that came 2000 years ago, which makes Kagero a very important character. Apparently, it's pretty easy for the Suo operatives to transport the others from the secret research facility that supposedly is controlled by Seiran. As I've said before, put some goddamn security here. Not that it matters now, since Suo transported every other held in this facility, which also means that they sort of kidnapped Naomi, who was held here. Kasane's platoon catches up to the transporters, and look who they are, Fubuki and Kodama. Just joking, it's Kodama and her twin sister. Apparently no one knew that she had a sister, even though OSF keeps a tight leash on all the information. I can understand if Kasane did not knew about it, but Arashi and Kyoka? I mean, it's a surprise, but somehow it feels a bit shoved in. It just does not look good. You, of course, fight the twin sisters and defeat them, and somehow they escape and you never hear anything from them again. Maybe Yuito's gang finished them off somewhere, but nobody mentions this, and if you're playing as Kasane the first time, you'll never know what happened to them afterwards. But to tell you the truth, they aren't important for the story whatsoever. After the battle, Togetsu's army of designed children finds you, and for some reason Kasane's platoon becomes completely powerless before them, even though they have Arashi/Kagero on their side. With their help, everyone could escape from almost any situation, especially from this one. I get it that they wanted to give Naomi and other ex-human others a sort of a valiant end, but it feels a bit weird, but sad in the end. Other than Naomi, there was a different other, whose death shook Major General Karen. I guess that other was also human, and this will come up in the future soon. Karen takes Kasane's power again and marches on to Yuito, since he also has the same time travel, which is weaker. This just begs the question, why? He was already able to travel the first time only with the help of Kasane, when she met him in the future. Not that it matters. The important thing is that the Karen wants to copy Yuito's power too, which will fry his brain. Kasane's platoon afterwards goes back to Suo after hearing Karen's intentions, where they are contacted by the navigator of the other team, Wataru, who tells you about Yuito's whereabouts and shows you the way to Arahabaki. This is, in my opinion, pretty interesting part, since Arahabaki is a supercomputer that runs on human brains. The sheer size of the computer just shows you its power. No wonder that it controls the whole city of Suo, and I think even Seiran. But after the rebellion, not anymore. It even has the power to take over the brain of a certain person. For some reason, the others are also walking around here as if they own this place, which is a bit sus. I get that even the protagonists say that it's weird, but you never get the explanation as to why. I get that New Himika wasn't the best country and they did experiments on ex-human others, but they still can't fully control them. So it doesn't make much sense for them to put them here. At some point you even go up against major other boss. Who put them here and why? This is probably the best place to talk about enemy variety. Don't get me wrong, there are sufficient amounts of enemies. Many of them are alike, but it would be wrong to say that they were simple reskins. My issue is that it does not make much sense for them to spawn everywhere. One of these examples are supercomputers such as Arhabaki and Babe. I know it's a silly name, but bear with me. It would have been better for the mechanoid type of enemies to exist. The technology in this game is pretty advanced. I mean, humanity colonized the moon and then recolonized the Earth, which already says a lot. Plus, why would someone put others into supercomputers where they have a chance to destroy sections or parts of it? That is why humanoid or mecha type enemies would have made much more sense here. In the end, Kasane's team catches up to Yuito, who was already defeated by Karen, or better said, he was able to resonate Kasane's and Yuito's powers, which in simple terms fried his brain. He was already pretty unstable, which made things even worse. But the power of friendship saves the day. Just joking. Since Yuito's brain was fried, everyone decides to copy their memories of Yuito directly into his brain, which would apparently solve the problem. In the end, their plan did only a portion in fixing Yuito's brain. The other part was done by the earpiece he got from the mysterious person when he was 5 years old. Only Kasane notices this, but this mystery will be cleared later on. After this incident, both Kasane and Yuito join forces. If you're playing as Kasane, the other party will come over to your hideout, and as Yuito, vice versa. The navigators even say how similar both of the hideouts look. With this one line, the devs just explain to you why they did not expend much more resources on two completely different hideouts. In the end, this was never the focus, so I won't complain much about it. But I have to say, every time you develop the relationships with your teammates and give them gifts, the hideout becomes livelier. Everyone have their unique tastes. Some like plants, while others are obsessed with protein. I mean, look at these boxes. I helped him in that regard. That reminds me of a certain someone in my life. After all of this, we get some more exposition, especially on Togetsu. But first, the important thing. When the humans started the recolonization of the Earth, a comet flew by that brought other particles, which were spread sort of evenly between the moon and the Earth. But people on the moon wanted to save their asses 100%, and since they had superior technology, at that time they were able to push almost all of the particles to the Earth, which formed the extinction belt, where most of the others are born. One of the other important reasons for the creation of the belt was to trap the colonizers on the Earth, so that they do not go back to the moon. The moon back then did not have a lot of space for every person, that is why they selected at least half of the population and sent them to Earth. At first, in order to trap these people, Kagero should have activated some machine, so that gravity of the Earth would trap them. But the operation failed, and then the moon resorted to the extinction belt. Now the gang knows all about Togetsu's ambitions to undo the colonization. Since Babe is also a supercomputer, the insides of it are sort of similar to our Habaki, but still unique enough. Before you reach the core, you talk with the Babe, and then have a pretty weird chase section with this big bad other who you never fight directly. This was a waste of opportunity in my opinion. I don't know if they rushed the game, but it's a shame. In the end, Babe shuts down itself and deletes all of the data it had. The gang also wanted to use the data the Babe had on the Red String's power to close Kunad Gate, since it was created by it. In order to get the information, the gang decides to bring an expert on a subject from the past, which is the mom of both of the protagonists. This revelation was a bit surprising. I never expected that Yuito's mother was also Kasane's. Kasane and Yuito are not related because his mother was only raising Kasane when she was a child? She's just a mother figure. Kasane and her mother were created by Togetsu, but I still don't think that they are related. Long story short, Kasane goes back in time, meets young Yuito and her mother, saves Yuito from the others, and gives him the earpiece that was designed by her mother in order to save Yuito in the future, when his brain was fried by Karen. How did she know about that? Well, listen to this. Do you remember Babe shutting down itself and erasing all of its data? The truth is, Babe did not erase its data. Rather, it sent the data through time to Wakana, the mother of the protagonists. Surprise, surprise, Wakana knows how to close the gate now. What a coincidence. In order to close the Kunat gate and save the world, Kasane and Yuito have to travel to the Chronos Terminal and resolve the quantum entanglements. Chronos Terminal is the space that is created after you open the Kunat gate and enter it. The terminal functions as a sort of an intersection. From here you can travel to any time you want. The resolving of the entanglements means to delete stuff that never should have happened, such as traveling 50 years in the future or the past, and to make it so as if these things never happened, which also deletes anything that unfolded because of it. Kasane and Yuito go to the Chronos Terminal, resolve entanglements, while also battling others over there too, which is dumb in my opinion. And I think this whole chapter should have been a cutscene in which they entangle everything and see that holy shit, Major General Karen was traveling through time and trying to change the history. The last event that needs to resolve is the mother, Wakana. She has to go back in time and get killed by Togetsu in order for them to get her brain, so that Babe in the future is able to send her the data to save the Yuito and close the Kunat gate. She does this and the gate should have been closed, but it's not. The last piece of the puzzle is Karen. The only entanglement that exists can only be closed by him, as far as I've understood. So the gang tries to get him, but where is he? No one is able to find Karen. But since Kasane and Yuito saw him killing Yakumo Sumeragi, the founding father, who apparently sleeps in his tomb in the center of the city Suo, the only way to know if Karen killed Yakumo is to check the tomb. If Karen is sleeping there, then he went back in time and killed Yakumo. With this, they will also find and talk to Karen. Sumeragi Tomb is the last dungeon, which is just a combination of all the previous locations. Here you're pitted against the strongest enemies that game has to offer, but nothing too difficult, at least on a normal difficulty. The last boss is Karen, who has 2 phases plus a sort of a third one. Is this a good final boss? Yes, but it's done a bit wrong, in my opinion at least. At the end of the dungeon you see the Karen from your version of history, who awakens the Karen who is sleeping in there. When 2 of them meet each other, they are combined for some reason. He also asks why he can travel through time, which is a bit weird. After this, you battle him, win, and force him to help you. After all the cutscenes and dialogues, he also tells you of a possibility to get rid of the extinction belt with the gate. This sounds like a cool idea, so the gang goes to Kunat Gate, moves all of the particles that make the extinction belt, and close the Kunat Gate. But in this instance, Karen knocks back the protagonists and goes back in time. But don't worry, he just erases himself from the history, which surprisingly brings back Alice, the person he was trying to save all this time. But sadly nobody remembers Karen except of the gang and Fubuki, since he got too involved in this time travel shenanigans. For some reason I wanted the final battle to take place in the past 2000 years ago, when Karen killed Yakumo Sumeragi. There was never a mention that when you resolve the quantum entanglement, the time travel becomes unavailable or something like this. So it's a bit weird that Karen from your timeline just could not time travel suddenly. After the credits, you get to talk with your companions one last time. Every one of them tells you what they are gonna do after this, which gives you good conclusion about their stories. You make a grave for Karen, and that's the end. Is this a good story? Overall, yeah. There are some weird moments, but it's okay. As a person who watches a lot of animes and plays a lot of games, the story did not surprise me much, but I enjoyed most of it. It is pretty hard to do time travel shenanigans in a story, but it was done at least alright here. If you think about it pretty hard, then you might find some of the plot holes, but nothing major. The growth of the Kasane and Yuito is done well. For example, Kasane grew from a cockblocker to a caring friend pretty well across the story. It did not sound forced. She still retained her robot-like habit to talk from the beginning, but in the end with slight emotions mixed into it. The growth of the other characters is optional, since it's done through Bond episodes which together take around 10 hours. They are like mini anime episodes. Some of the chapters could have been one, plus sometimes it did not make much sense to wait between chapters. I mean, there is a rebellion going on, your father or brother may die, you know? But screw that, we wait. Because you have to bond with your friends, and if there is anything I learned from animes is that friendship always wins, and here maxed out bonds just break the game. Lack of the real bad guy is, in my opinion, a problem. I mean, Karen is not one. Alright, Togetsu is just Togetsu. They were beaten a bit too easily. There is Kodama and her sister, but they are terribly underutilized. After chapter 8, they even don't show up again, which makes you wonder if the writers forgot about them or they are purposely saving them for the sequels. Another problem is the lack of other noteworthy OSF members. But Borislav, you might say, there is Karen, Fubuki, Kodama, and her sister, Seto, and that's it. As far as I've understood, OSF has a lot of members, which you never meet outside the cutscenes, but even there they are just some random dudes. Don't get me wrong, I just want to hear about other platoons and their leaders at least. Plus, there should at least be a mention of a couple more Septentrians. This should have been okay if there wasn't any rebellion, you know? Why would both parties, Seiran or Suo, did not send any of their OSF members against each other? The battle on a Kunat highway would have been much cooler if some of the other noteworthy OSF members participated in it. This is just a wasted opportunity. Because of this, the whole OSF just seems like a petty government organization with special powers. The story has a satisfying ending, but it can have a sequel, which the devs implied with Kasane's journey to the moon. This could be interesting, plus the biggest mystery, the others, isn't resolved. What are they and where they came from? This could easily become a trilogy, but who knows, maybe something more. The potential is out there. There were a couple of the bugs, such as defeating a boss not triggering the cutscene, and henceforth I could not move on with the story, but a quick reload fixed everything. As far as I can remember, I had 2 or 3 crashes, which is bad, but during the second playthrough such a thing did not happen again. After all, the game was patched regularly after the release. My main issue lies with boring quest designs, a bit with the story, but the biggest is probably the difficulty. Even after cranking it up too hard, I never felt any difference. The game seemed the same. Maybe enemies had more HP or attack power, but nothing major. As I've said before, once you find out about the invisibility combo, suddenly most of the game becomes easy. As Yuito, this is only possible after chapter 8, but for Kasane, almost the whole game. Overall, I had a lot of fun with Scarlet Nexus. Yes, optional quests were boring and some of the story was a bit weird, but if you let these slide, then you will enjoy this game. Plus, this isn't a AAA title, so it costs $50, which for the 40 to 60 hours of fun is pretty fitting. If you see this game on a sale, then it's a must-buy if you like either animes, action, or JRPG games. As I've mentioned previously, this isn't a AAA title, but a good base for one in the future. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.